Okay.
Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Pushing the Limits. Lisa Tamati here. I am so excited to introduce you to one of the most eminent luminaries in the field of cancer, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who's with us today to share his incredible research and information that could literally save your life. So listen up, people. Dr. Thomas, welcome to the show. It's fantastic to have you.
Oh, well, very nice to be here, Lisa. Thank you very much.
I just gave you a little bit of a backstory on my mum before we started recording. And, you know, I feel like you and many of your colleagues as well that are working in the space literally have saved her life. So thank you for the work that you are doing. It is incredibly important and very dear to my heart that we get this message out there of the problems with the cancer. The cancer is a horrific thing to be faced with, and for decades science has really followed the somatic genetic theory of cancer. Can you go into why that's barking up the wrong tree or not quite correct, and where do we start with this metabolic approach to cancer?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. Of course, it's kind of a long story. How did we get today in treating people for cancer in a most incorrect way? Not only there in New Zealand where you are, but also here in the United States, and almost every major Western country, or let's put it this way, technologically advanced society, does the same thing over and over again. And the treatments that are being developed, you have to approach a scientific problem with a kind of a theory as to what the nature of the disease is, because if you really understand the nature of the disease, then the treatments that you use to manage the disease are linked to the hard science of the disease. So most of the treatments today for cancer are based on the view that cancer is a genetic disease called the somatic mutation theory of cancer, which exploded probably after the structure of DNA was first discovered in that early 1950s, through the 1950s, when DNA became a really hot topic in gene regulation. And scientists, I have a doctoral degree in genetics and biochemistry, and we all knew about mutations. They would, cause shortness or tallness or change flower colors, and people had certain albinism and different kinds of things, and we all knew these were controlled by mutations. But then in the 50s, when DNA was finally, the structure was elucidated by Watson and Crick and others, people began to see broken and abnormal DNA in cancer cells. And based on that and the surge of scientific interest in gene expression and diseases related to gene mutations, it only became natural that the field ran and stampede into this whole idea that all of these, if you look at tumors from any person or any place, they're loaded with broken DNA and broken chromosomes and individual point mutations and all this. But before the DNA revolution, Otto Warburg in Germany had clearly defined what cancer was. And he was a very dominant aristocratic German. And he had shown clearly that cancer arises as the result of a disturbance in energy metabolism. And because of that, the cells, to get energy, had to fall back on an ancient pathway, an heirloomic pathway of fermentation, which is energy without oxygen. So he had clearly defined all of this, that cancer clearly arose. Every major tumor that he studied was using this ancient fermentation pathway, even in the presence of oxygen, which should never happen. And he was a very dominant. He had received the Nobel Prize in the 1930s for his discovery of the respiratory enzyme in the mitochondrion. In other words, the enzyme that allowed us to generate energy by breathing oxygen.
The cytokine.
So he was a very dominant guy. Hitler protected him during the Second World War because he was a half Jew. And Hitler was, as crazy as Hitler was, he was smart enough to know that if anyone was going to cancer, it was going to be Otto Warburg.
Wow.
So, he wasn't that dumb, right? So Hitler cured cancer. And it was a very interesting story that Sam Apple just put out in his book called Ravenous, the history of. But the problem was when in 1950s, when DNA was recognized as the genetic material and cancer cells had damaged DNA, they threw Warburg under the bus.
Yep.
And they moved on from him. There were some criticisms which now we have completely resolved and shown how he was so correct in what he thought, but he didn't have all of the information that we have today. So then I started to jump into this whole thing because we were doing research here at Boston College and seeing how powerful water-only fasting was in targeting all of these different factors that were supposed to be cancer drivers. And then we saw a complete correlation between the level of sugar in the blood and how fast the tumor would grow. And we realized that the higher the sugar, the faster the tumor, the lower the sugar, the slower the tumor would grow. And this is exactly what Warburg said. And then we realized the sugar drives these ancient heirloomic pathways. So it became very clear that this shift from energy through oxygen consumption to energy through ancient fermentation was in fact the driver of this dysregulated cell growth. And it turns out that the mutations that we see that are the focus of the somatic mutation theory and the development of the current approaches to manage cancer are all downstream effects of this damaged energy metabolism. So the field is chasing effects, not the causes of the cancer. And this now can accounts, when we irradiate people, we just try to incinerate as many growing cells as possible because the cells are growing out of control for the reasons of gene mutations. And then we try poisonous chemicals that are supposed to stop the replication of the abnormal DNA. And then we come in with immunotherapies and precision medicine, which are targeting the mutations and the pathways of the mutations. And none of this stuff is working because it's not based on the underlying correct theory, which we have clearly shown to be correct, that these cells can't live without these fuels that drive the energy, the ancient energy pathways. And we have interrogated the cancer cells and have shown that only two fuels can drive the abnormal growth, and that's the sugar glucose and the well-known amino acid glutamine. And as long as the cancer cells have access to these two fuels in the body, they have the chance of continuing to grow and spread. And then we learned that because their organelle, the mitochondria that gets energy through oxygen, because that is defective, these cancer cells cannot burn ketone bodies, which come from when you water-only fasting.
Yeah.
You lower sugar and elevate ketone bodies because your brain needs glucose, but it can switch to these water-soluble ketone bodies, which come from breakdown fat. So the fat in our fat cells goes to our liver and chops up the fat into these water-soluble smaller molecules that go to the brain and other organs that have good respiration. But the tumor cell can't use this because their respiration is defective. So it helps the normal cells and marginalizes the tumor cells. So if you can elevate the ketone bodies and reduce glucose and glutamine, the two fuels that drive the fermentation, you now have a real powerful tool to manage the cancer.
If you want to learn how to implement the ketogenic diet and the Press Pulse protocol into your cancer management, just visit school.com/keto for cancer, the new community by our research analyst Johnny Rockermeyer. Within this new community platform, you can connect with other patients and learn from their experiences. You can also just search through the posts other members have already made. You will have access to our classroom section as well, which provides practical advice and tools for the best results. These sections cover all parts of the Press Pulse protocol that you should implement. Starting with the General Scientific Concepts by Dr. Thomas Seyfried, we will show you how to start the ketogenic diet, including which foods to choose and which to avoid. Additionally, we prepared a list of doctors specialized in metabolic therapy, as well as details about glutamine inhibition and hyperbaric oxygen protocols. So, take a look around at school.com/keto for cancer.
And what we do now is we use that transition of the body, and then we add these different kinds of small drugs, repurposed drugs in very low dosages to eliminate any toxicity. And now these repurposed drugs become laser beams to kill these tumor cells without the toxicity. It's unbelievable.
This is incredible.
It's just,
it's just
based
so,
on the correct knowledge of what the cancer is. And
yeah.
once you understand that, then you realize the crazy stuff that we're doing to these cancer patients is essentially medieval. It's based on a flawed understanding of the disease and an incorrect theory.
And it's going to shorten your life too when you're doing, like the oxidative stress that it comes from it. And if we look at the ancient DNA, like our ancestors, our native ancestors here, the Maori overseas, the Aboriginals, the Red Indians, all of the peoples, they generally didn't have cancer, did they? Like it's a modern day, much more of a modern day thing. And people will say, well, maybe they didn't live long enough to get it. But I think it's really got another reason. And it's that fact that we have now radically changed two things. We've radically changed the toxins in our environment and the food that we're eating. And we were always in a half-starved state when we were as people. So now we are surrounded by food. Unfortunately, we've got the genetics that drives us to find food and to eat food. And to store it. And we have also got, the genetics. We are trained, if you like, genetically to go and search out carbohydrates because they were rare. Yes. Now, when they're on every street corner and you've got the big food industry that is hell-bent on making you addicted to their particular type of food as well, then you've got a bit of a mess. When you've got that going on. And you're not getting into states of ketosis like we were regularly. So glutamine and glucose. So going back to Otto Warburg, it's the mitochondria that go awry first, isn't it? So the genetics that happen, the changes and the mutations happen later on in the piece, but it's the mitochondria. So if you took that famous experiment where they took the nucleus out of a healthy cell and put it into, which way around was it? Into a damaged mitochondria, or the other way around.
Both ways. Well, I did that. I published that paper in 2015, and all I did was take and summarize a series of experiments that had been published for over many decades in different animal species, different tumors, different approaches. And I looked at the nuclear transfer experiments. And none of the folks that were doing these experiments were asking whether or not the data would support the somatic mutation theory or the mitochondrial metabolic theory. The reason is that all of those experiments were done under the silent assumption. Well, they weren't even interested in genetics. The purpose of those cancer, they were not interested in cancer. They were only interested in a singular question. Can the nucleus of a cancer cell direct normal development? It wasn't to test the somatic mutation theory. No. The answer was, yes, nuclei from cancer cells can direct development in a frog or a mouse or a rat or one of these things only up until a certain point, and then the organism would abort. And it turned out that depending upon how many mutations were in the nucleus that was being transferred, determined how far in development the organism would go before it imploded or aborted. And the reason was because there was a mutation that was absolutely critical at some point in development, required to move from one stage of development to the next stage, a more advanced complete stage. And that was not there, so the organism aborted. So, but at no time did any of these organisms show a dysregulated cell growth. So one would have to assume that none of the mutations in those nucleus were sufficient by themselves to cause what we call cancer is dysregulated cell growth. And on the other hand, if you took the normal nucleus and put it into the cytoplasm of a tumor cell, you either got dead cells or cancer, cells with dysregulated growth. So that clearly said it was something in the cytoplasm, not the nucleus, that was driving dysregulated cell growth. And Otto Warburg clearly said it's the mitochondria that's responsible, and they're in the cytoplasm. So our focus of attention in cancer is now completely shifted to a completely different organelle that runs the metabolism of the cell. And that organelle, the mitochondrion, maintains the differentiated quiescent state of adult normal differentiated cells. And when that organelle becomes gradually corrupted in some way, it loses its ability to maintain stability, and the cells fall back on these ancient pathways of dysregulated cell growth, because that same organelle controls the cell cycle, which leads to the cell will grow dysregulated as long as it has these fermentable fuels in its environment, which is the glucose and the glutamine. Because it turns out that all of the cells on the planet 2 billion years ago, when there was no oxygen, they all used the same fermentable fuels.
Yeah.
So the cancer cell is simply going back to the time when there was no oxygen.
And so
it's not that complicated. You need to know evolutionary biology, and you need to understand energy metabolism, and we need to understand genetics, because when you understand genetics, you know that the arguments for the somatic mutation theory cannot be correct. So you really have to know genetics, and you have to know what's correct and what's not correct. And the somatic mutation theory, which is the driver of all of the major cancer developments and treatments, is incorrect. And as the result, we have an epidemic of cancer, also linked to what you said about the food. The food obesity is replaced smoking as a major risk factor for cancer. And it's all related to the chemicals in the environment. It's all related to the abnormal food environment that we have. And now we have suffering this, and it's not just cancer, it's diabetes, type 2 diabetes, dementia, cardiovascular disease, all of these so-called hypertension, high blood pressure. It's all linked to the same thing.
Exactly. And so you fix, I've had lots of clients where they've got type 2 diabetes. We put them on a keto diet, get them exercising, doing it. And hello, 10 years, 15 years as a diabetic, no longer insulin dependent, no longer diabetic. It's not rocket science. It's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy for the person. They've got to make change. But they're in control once they understand, but they've never been told about this, how this works. And then this is the mind-blowing thing, that you can actually help. I mean, and diabetes is the gateway for all of these things, Alzheimer's and all the rest of it. In fact, it starts earlier with insulin resistance.
Yes.
So you see glucose and glutamine. Now, glucose, like we can lower our glucose, we can go on a low carb diet, a keto diet, where so you're saying all the other cells beside the cancer cells can actually use ketones and fatty acids to survive and thrive, but the cancer cells need the glucose and the glutamine. Now, I sort of get that. Now, the glutamine is the tougher one, isn't it? Yeah. Because I've run into a situation with my mum. I've had her on a low, at the very start, fasting, or very, very low, basically a few vegetables on a plate, and that was it. So while we went hard out in this press pulse, killing phase, then we got on top of it. And the problem I ran into was recently a GI bleed. So she had 2 GI bleeds. Now we've been running her low on glutamine. We've been running, and we need glutamine, don't we? We need it for the immune system, the urea cycle, And so this one's a little bit tougher than the glucose, isn't it? Because we can't go without glutamine altogether. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah, well, that's our pulse strategy of the press pulse. You can press glucose really, really low and create a tremendous deficit as long as ketone bodies can be elevated. Ketone bodies can replace glucose for most of the body's energy metabolism. Okay. The cancer cell uses glucose for metabolite synthesis. They need to building blocks to grow new cells. And the carbons from glucose are essential for the cancer cell. But don't forget, our normal cells are not growing in any great speed, so they're fine as long as they have some energy. But what we found, and it's only some of the you have to realize there are some cancer cells that are more dependent on glucose than glutamine, and then there's other cancer cells that are dependent on both glucose and glutamine. And the ones that are metastatic, the ones that spread through your body, we have shown clearly that all metastatic cancers, regardless of where they arise, whether it's the breast, the colon, the bladder, the lung, they have characteristics of macrophages, which are part of our immune system. The macrophage is a major cell in our bodies. It fights bacterial infections. It reconfigures broken tissue and all this. It has a tremendous role in the gut. It has a tremendous role in maintaining the health and vitality of our immune cells, and they're all glutamine. These cells all use glutamine excessively and glucose. So some cancer cells are more glucose dependent, others are glutamine and glucose dependent. So the question then is, how do you target an essential a fuel that not only drives the cancer cell, but also is essential for the very immune system that we need to maintain our health?
It's a bit tougher.
So this is why we developed this strategy where if we put a chokehold on the glucose levels and raise the ketone level, then we come in with a short burst, an attack on the glutamine, because what that will do will be killing the cancer cells. It paralyzes the immune system, but it doesn't kill the immune system. It just stuns the immune system, but it kills the cancer cells. So then we pull the glutamine drug off, allow the recovery of our immune cells to do what they do, which is pick up dead corpse bodies and things like this, clean up the microenvironment. The microenvironment of a tumor is very messy, and it's coming from the fermentation. So the tumor cells take in glucose and glutamine, and the waste products acidify the microenvironment. Right. So you pull the plug on the fermentation fuels, you kill them with a small dose like 6-deoxynorlucine, and there's a number of other small drugs that are coming out that could be effective, but they only work when you target the glucose. If you do not target the glucose, none of this will work.
Because that's the main player here.
Yeah, and we just published a paper today or yesterday showing how if we put on pediatric brain cancer, a model, a preclinical, a beautiful preclinical model for pediatric brain cancer, where they use all these drugs they weren't effective in targeting this or targeting that. So we choke off the glucose, we put them under therapeutic ketosis, and then we hit them with these drugs that will target the glutamine pathway and kill these tumor cells like you can't believe. But you can only do it in a short. You have to know it's a powerful weapon, but you have to know how to use the weapon.
And exactly, this is the tough part when you haven't got access to yourself. Like, we live here in New Zealand, and when we go to our local doctor, they're not going to know about glutamine blocking drugs.
Yeah, well, this is the whole thing. I mean, we're transitioning the entire cancer industry over to treat the right way. And physicians need to know that it's a metabolic disease. They need to know that it can't use ketone bodies to grow. They need to know that they're dependent on glucose and glutamine, and they need to know how to use glutamine targeting drugs effectively.
Yeah, which we can't get.
They should be very excited about this, because now they can certainly practice dosage, timing, and scheduling. And not everybody will need one dosage or another, or need it for this long or that long, or need it scheduled with this or that. So that's what our research is right now. Our research is not considered, the field would consider it unsexy science because all we're trying to do is find the best dosage, timing, and scheduling to get rid of the cancer.
Yep.
And, when you go to the top medical schools, regardless of where they are, they're all interested in intricate mechanisms of this.
The mutations of this and
They're,
that.
they're not interested in the resolution of cancer. Get rid of it. I say let's get rid of it, or at least put it under managed control. And then once we can do that for the majority of people living with cancer on the planet, we can always go back for the next several hundred years and then figure out all the detailed minutia mechanisms.
Yep.
But why should we allow all these poor cancer patients to suffer and die while we're looking for the minutia when we have a solution in hand right now that can work? But we need to train physicians and oncologists to know how to use the new weaponry.
Yep.
And a lot of it falls on the shoulders of the patient now. The
And
patient,
totally, like us.
The patient themselves have to be participatory in the healing process.
Yep.
So
And they
if
have
they
to
don't
do
want
the
to
study.
participate, it's not going to work.
And it takes, we were given a terminal diagnosis by dozen doctors with mum, and you're not going to survive this. And this is very aggressive and very quick, and there was nothing you could do. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
There is so much that we can do. And I've struggled to get the things that I need to get for her. And I've done, off-label drug combinations, the metformin, atorvastatin, doxycycline, mebendazole. What's your take on those? And what's your
That's our paper that we also just published with mbendazole.
Yeah.
Showing that it has some therapeutic benefit in simultaneously targeting glucose and glutamine.
Uh-huh.
But but the way you do that, you got to, in order for those drugs to really have the biggest impact, you have to lower that blood sugar and put the chokehold on the sugar.
Yeah.
And then you
did that.
And mbendazole is used in India for parasite worms. I mean, everybody in the population takes mbendazole.
Yeah.
So it's not a toxic drug. And it even becomes more powerful against cancer once you prepare the patient for the drug. So step one is clean the mess up, prepare the patient, get him into ketosis, and then hit him with these glutamine targeting drugs, glucose glutamine targeting drugs, and do it until the cancer goes away. I mean, people say, "Oh, how long do I have to do this?" I don't know. I mean, just do it as long. Some people may have to do it for 10 months. Some people for 2 years. The answer is I don't know. Our guy, Pablo Kelly from Devon, England, who has a glioblastoma, is now out 9 years this August.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And his tumor is still there. Okay. Is Pablo? No. But Pablo has lived 9 years longer than
with the worst cancer that there is.
Yeah, he's had married, he's had 2 kids. He would have never had any of this had he followed the standard of care. So,
and is 2-deoxyglucose, is that a glutamine inhibitor, like the 2-deoxyneurolysin?
No, 2-DG targets glucose pathway. And it also has off-target effects. But the issue with 2D, and that's what Warburg and some of those other guys, they didn't know about the glutamine problem.
No.
So they were just strictly trying to target the glucose. And not only that, they also felt that proper nutrition and vitamins might help recover some of the damage to the mitochondria. Even though Warburg himself said it was an irreversible damage, he never knew how to fully exploit his discovery of the origin. I picked that up. I knew exactly what we should do to take advantage of this. So because I expanded the area that Warburg didn't have the information in. So Warburg absolutely was correct on the origin of cancer. He just did not know how to exploit that for the management of cancer. So now we know it's glucose and glutamine, and now we know we have diet drug combination cocktails that can really do a lot of damage to these tumor cells while not harming the rest of the body. So
what do people do who can't get the glutamine blockers at the moment? Like you live in New Zealand, we can't get them.
Well, that we found that long-term water-only fasting will lower blood glutamine down Cahill and a number of people did that. But, you know, when you tell a cancer patient that might not be in good physical shape, hey, you've got to stop eating food for 14 to 21 days. I mean, they look at you like you're crazy. No, I don't want to. So, you know, what we try to do is ease them into a ketotic state. And then when you jump from a ketotic state into water-only fasting, the jump is not so traumatic. If you take someone on a high glucose diet who's eaten high carbohydrates,
it's going to be painful.
Oh, it's horrible, man. It's hard. It's hard. And people say, I don't want to do this. What are you crazy? But if you give them a carnivore diet, you know, a low calorie, no glucose, just meat. This guy from Australia, Anthony Chaffee, he's had tremendous success with low carbohydrate, low calorie carnivore. I'm not saying plants can't do the same thing. It's just harder for our bodies to metabolize plants, and some plants have more sugar than meat. So, you know, it's just that's why we developed the glucose ketone index calculator with the Keto Mojo meter that allows all the cancer patients to get into the zone. And once they're in this low carb, high fat, high ketone zone, then you can use small doses of a variety of drugs like 2-deoxyglucose, very, very low dose, a little bit of Dawn, very low doses, and variety of other drugs. But if you fast long enough, just water only, we see blood glutamine going down and glucose goes down. And I know of many, many people who have completely removed their tumor with long-term water-only fasting. But, you know, I'm not a physician. I can't tell anybody what to do or what not to do. All I can say is when I see people that have done long-term water-only fasting, more often than not, their tumors are completely dissolved without taking any glutamine targeting drugs.
Wow. So that's our other option if we can't get the
I think that's why I'm more excited about getting people into a low glucose ketone index and then hitting them. Let the physicians do their work by helping with dosage timing and scheduling, because we're at the very early beginning stages of this whole thing. We're going to be able to find many, many drug diet cocktails that will be very, very effective in managing cancer. But again, the patient is going to have to be a key participant in the healing process.
Well, either that or you die. You know, like this is the thing. You can't outsource your health. I've learned that so many times in the last decade, that you have to be an active participant in wanting to get better, and you need support. And when I'm working with people with cancer and helping them get it, I get their loved ones on board if I can, because without that support around them, it's also very hard.
And you never want to underplay the importance of exercise.
Yes.
Moderate exercise. Yes, that is all part of the solution.
Yes.
You just cannot sit on a couch and wait for the metabolic therapy to work. It works a hell of a lot better if you're doing exercise. And you don't have to go nuts, you know, running marathons and lifting hundreds of pounds of weights or kilos of weights or whatever.
Which would actually be
good walking, swimming, something that gets the heart beating, the oxygen in, and together the metabolic state. Intermittent fasting, you know, eating extremely low calorie, low carbohydrate diets. And people are now becoming very, very innovative in the diets. We have a guy from Greece with lung cancer that metastasized to his lungs and his brain. And he's out now 11 years on a calorie restricted Mediterranean type diet with low glucose, elevated ketone. So we think these can be culturally appropriate metabolic therapies. So
you don't have to be a carnivore, or you could be a vegetarian, you could be a vegan, you can do, as long as you are low carb and you're getting the problem.
Yeah, what we find though is when you get the meter, and you know, we publish 2.0 or below. In fact, below is better. It's easier for carnivores than vegans to get into that zone. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't say vegans are very difficult. Vegetarians. More vegetarian. Vegetarians have to work a lot longer and harder to get into ketosis than do carnivores. Like you said at the beginning, we were all on a level of ketosis in our Paleolithic ancestry. And our Paleolithic ancestors were largely meat eaters. They would eat vegetables if they could get a hold of them, and maybe some unripe fruits or whatever, nuts and berries and things. But clearly, it was the majority of our food came from meat, and they were always in some level of ketosis because carbohydrates were not available. The Neolithic period is when we started to grow rice, wheat, and corn, and all this kind of stuff, and they were all a boom, which led to civilization, because they had higher amounts of calories, and allowed people to build cities and things around the calories. But our Paleolithic ancestors were hunter-gatherers, but they were always in a state of semi-ketosis. So most of the plants that we eat have been cultivated. They're not like wild plants. Maybe some of them are. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of nutrition in certain amount of vegetation. But I don't think it's hard. It's been harder for those vegetarians, or especially vegans, to get into a GKI. I've had people tell me from different countries who cannot eat meat that they cannot do that, and they end up dying. So they never can get their culture, religion, or whatever it is, prevents them from ever achieving a glucose ketone index that would save their life.
So, and what about the glutamine in the meat? Like there's amino acids in meat.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's not. It's in the microenvironment of the tumor. We're testing that right now. We actually have some studies underway right now, asking whether glutamine supplementation of a ketogenic diet will enhance growth. And the answer is we know that it's certainly not suppressing. It's certainly not suppressing the growth of the tumor. Whether it's going to make it grow faster or not, I can't say, because the experiments aren't done yet. But we plan to do all that. We plan to answer all of the different kinds of questions that come up by both preclinical studies as well as human studies. So we'll know the answer to these questions in the future.
That's great, and I'm looking forward to that, because the glutamine is a bit of a difficult one when you've got, say, like with Mum's case, she's got GI bleed. She nearly died twice of a GI bleed. So I could have run her glutamine so low that I was disrupting her microbiome and the lining of her gut. And kill it that way, you know what I mean?
That's is where you need a good nutritionist, dietitian, along with the oncologist. You need, each patient is a little different from the other. Yeah, each patient is a little different from the other, and that's the nice thing about it is, I mean, you streamline and build diets and procedures that are appropriate for the physiology of that individual. If it's a male or a female or an old person or a young person, I mean, you and their condition, state of condition. Everything has to be balanced for that. That's why you need a readout, a metabolic readout of each patient before you begin any kind of a treatment. And then you could streamline the treatment based on that person's individual metabolism. And this is the future. So a patient comes in, you're going to say, well, if you're insulin insensitive, we got to get you back. And if your cholesterol and triglycerides are all screwed up, I mean, we need to get you back. A lot of people are infected with parasites and stuff. I mean, we have to clean you up, metal imbalances, all kinds of crap in the blood. And all of that has to be recognized and has to be dealt with. And it's a process. You're moving a person from a state of unwellness to wellness. And that person wasn't born unwell. They acquired unwellness from their diet and lifestyle. And that didn't happen overnight.
No.
It took years to that. So we have to undo and reconfigure normalcy in the body while at the same time killing off these tumor cells. So it's a beautiful strategy. It's going to be where people are going to get
I'm excited to get more nuance into this so that you can, we've done really well, but we could do better. And there's more that I don't understand and that I need to understand, especially around the glutamine thing. I think that's
I think that's definitely a point of issue, because we're not 100% sure about it either, because we don't know how long to pulse and dosage, the dosages, the timing, the strategy. That all is being worked out now, and we have to improve that. No question about it. I'm not sitting here saying, I have the solution to the whole cancer problem. I have a solution that needs to be perfected and modified to make it much more effective for the majority of people. And we're learning that. But I know this is the right path.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
is the future.
Yep.
This will be the future because it's based on a hard knowledge of the science that's driving the dysregulated cell growth. And we can have massive improvement. But the other problem, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but you're making a lot of obese people thin, a lot of people that were diabetic, non-diabetic, no high blood pressure goes away, hypertension goes away. I mean, this
Big
is
Pharma won't like that.
this is a cash cow for an industry. In
Mhm.
other words, you're taking away all of besides the cancer, you're making people very healthy. They don't need the drugs and things like this. So, so I don't know how the system is going to deal with that. But, I just want to show that we can do and there's enough. We have a movie coming out that's already it's a 5-part series.
Yeah, we're in
called-
it. Mum and I are in it.
Oh, are you? The Cancer
Yeah.
Revolution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a wonderful work that they're
Yeah,
doing.
well, I think when people begin to see all these so-called terminal cancer patients not alive.
Exactly. Meant to
Yeah.
be dead long ago.
Yeah, there's
Not
another
dead.
there's another patient from New Zealand with Dr.
Phillips.
Matthew
Yeah.
Phillips. He has a patient that was absolutely considered a dead person walking.
Wow.
They had a malignant thyroid cancer that kills almost everybody. And that person came on perfectly healthy. I mean, it was a struggle to get rid of it, but she certainly is doing well now in New Zealand. He's been part of our consultation team as well.
Well,
So,
I've got to get hold of him too. Then.
yeah. And his patient is in the same movie.
Well, we're both going to be in the same movie. That's
Yes,
fab.
your mother and the other New Zealander will be in there. You guys
Yeah.
got to start connecting with each other. You'll find
We've gone to Boston to come back to New Zealand.
absolutely. I work with the Australians. I work with the people from India. I work with the Chinese. I work with the Koreans. We work with the Germans and the English and the French and the Turks and the
Amazing.
Egyptians.
This is wonderful. This is wonderful news. Actually, I heard on one of your lectures you talking about the Istanbul, some researchers in Istanbul using your approach, but then adding in low dose chemo. And I know Dr. David Minkoff does this as well. Is that insulin potentiated low chemo, or is it just low chemo? So you're getting the cancer cells really stressed out. You're stealing all their food. They're really at the precipice of dying, and then you just push them over the cliff with some very low dose.
Yes, you can use very, very low doses of chemo. So you don't need these high doses. And it's a sequence of events. They use hypothermia, some little insulin potentiation, keto metabolic therapy. What you're doing, these tumor cells are already very weak. They and everybody says how strong they are. Yeah, they're strong as long as you feed them glucose and glutamine. Yeah. They become like Samsons. But you take away that, they have no power. They end up
Achilles heel of the cancer.
No. So a little chemo will just throw them over the edge. And then, of course, the toxic adverse effects from the chemo are so much less. We have Dr. Longo in Los Angeles is using water-only fasting with low-dose chemo. And they don't have very minimal toxicity, very, very effective. So, you just need to know your physiology. And I said before you do this, you need to know the physiology of the patient. The paper we published with the Istanbul group was a woman with advanced breast cancer that metastasized to her brain and her lungs and her bone. And the clinic in Cleveland, in Ohio, said she was terminal and she would have 1 month to live. And she went to the Istanbul clinic and was put in emergency care medicine for at least a week and a half or 2 weeks. She was almost dead from bacterial infections and everything. Oh. And finally, she was recovered, was touch and go there for a while. And then she took the metabolic therapy from that clinic. And within a few months, the cancer was gone. And she flew back to the United States. And then we got pictures of her and her husband enjoying life in Hawaii.
Amazing.
Hawaii. And this was a woman who was given 1 month left to live with terminal cancer in the brain and all over. But I think we can do this in a lot of people. I don't think And the institutions always tell me with these guys, oh, they're flukes, they're anecdotes.
Oh,
You know, and I said, why don't you, let's do a big trial. And the problem is I don't want to start a big trial because the people doing the trial don't know anything about what I'm talking about. So you really need to train a group of physicians and oncologists and nutritionists. Everybody is on the same page. Everybody understands cancer as a mitochondrial metabolic disease, the new theory. They need to know their physiology. They need to know a variety of different aspects of what they should have been trained for in the first place. And then they would then institute the plan. And we're writing the treatment protocol as we speak. So
that's
we're getting
amazing.
feedback from physicians all over the world that are adding and subtracting things from their personal experience. And then we'll publish this. And then you'll have a blueprint, a protocol plan, how to do it, what to do, all this kind of stuff. And then we'll start getting feedback. And then once we start to see success in many different dimensions, then we can start a large clinical trial, because it works for every major cancer. They're all dependent on the fermentation. They're not different from each other. Genetically, they're all different from each other. Metabolically, they're all similar to each other.
That's a huge point, because people are so in the minutiae of the mutations. And I was at the beginning, I did advanced genetic testing, trying to work out. And I think there's the downstream of that is good, that we need to understand those things, but it's really the, go higher up the tree, cut the fuel off. But how do you get it? Like when I go to my our local hospital, I walk in there to, mum gets she's got a portacath, and we get our blood flush thing done every month. And when they're sitting there, all the chemo patients with their chocolate and their orange juice, and the oncologist said to mum last time when we walked out afterwards, "Oh, you've lost a bit of weight, Isabel, eat your pudding." And mum looks at me and goes, "That ain't happening, is it?"
Yeah,
and I'm
no,
going,
no,
that isn't happening, Ma.
Yeah, well, you see, here's the thing. And again, it's like a solidification of the mind. They were trained.
Incredible.
Yeah, they were trained. Oncologists were trained to worry about weight loss, and we have different kinds of weight loss. So if you have
explain cachexia, explain that.
Yeah, weight loss from cachexia. The cancer cells break down the muscles. They send signals to the muscle, and the muscle breaks down into amino acids. And some of those amino acids are glutamine, and some of them are lysine and other glycogenic amino acids that go to the liver. And the liver takes those amino acids and makes sugar and for the tumor, and the glutamine coming out of the muscle is the other fuel. So your muscles your cancer is dissolving your muscles. You're losing weight because the cancer needs glucose and glutamine. And therefore, and that weight loss is called pathological weight loss. Then you treat the patient with toxic chemicals and radiation, and that causes the patient gets so sick they can't eat. And then you get starvation, or you get another form of poisonous weight loss because the patient is poisoned. People who are poisoned have fatigue, nausea, and diarrhea, and this kind of thing. So the knee-jerk, mindless reaction is eat carbohydrates to put weight back on, which is fueling the tumor. So metabolic therapy causes therapeutic weight loss. The weight loss therapeutic weight loss. Your body is getting healthier while you're losing weight, not sicker. And even I've heard feedback from some patients that are morbidly obese, 300 more pounds, 250 kilos or whatever. And the physician is worried about weight loss.
I mean, yeah, like when you've got a very thin, slim person, then it's that initial weight loss scares the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with, because I work with a lot of these people, helping them get under the right doctors and do the right things and coordinate and exercise and nutrition, and getting people who are very slim to do this metabolic approach is really difficult, because they're scared that if they lose a little bit more weight, they're really going to be in trouble. But it's therapeutic weight loss versus pathologic weight loss.
Absolutely. And that's not recognized.
No.
And the other crazy thing you see, again, from the solidification of the training in the mind, they look at ketosis as pathological ketoacidosis.
Yeah, which is not
therapeutic ketosis. We all
very
evolved in a state of therapeutic ketosis, but people with type 1 diabetes can get ketoacidosis, which is high blood sugar, and ketones, which is a lethal event. And they think, oh, ketogenic diets are going to get ketoacidosis. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You got to know the extremes of what you're working with. And then, they'll come out and say, oh, eating that ketogenic diet is bad for your heart. Yes, if I sat down all day long and ate tubs and tubs of lard, yeah, it might not be good, but that's not what we do.
No, and it's not the keto diet of the bodybuilders and who are pounding bacon and things like that. My keto diet for mum was basically small amounts of protein, mostly white, so fish and chicken. It was iffy on the red meat. I'd love your take on red meat, and vegetables like salads and green leafy vegetables. So she got some nutrients and things in, and then we've relaxed it a little bit of so that she can enjoy now 20 months into it. But I periodically I make it go hard again because I know, and we exercise every single day. And we do hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I'd love your take on that. And that I have a clinic. I have hyperbaric oxygen clinic, and I saw it save her life from the brain injury, and then I've seen it be a big part of her cancer comeback as well.
Well, I think, as we said in the press pulse, the patient should be in therapeutic ketosis when they go into that chamber.
Yeah,
and the timing of the day, like they would do a measuring using the glucose ketone index calculator to know what time of the day do you have the lowest GKI, because it varies on every person is a little different. It could vary from one time to another, and they would know their body rhythm, and they would say, oh, late morning is my best time, or mid-afternoon is my best time, or early evening is my best time, and whatever that is, a time, that's when they go into the hyperbaric chamber.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So again, this is the doses, timing, and scheduling of everything.
What about the intravenous vitamin C?
Well, that causes oxidative stress. Again, oxidative stress on the tumor cells and therapeutic enhancement of the normal cells. Again, all that stuff works better when the patient is in ketosis.
Yeah. So these are good adjunctive things to add into the great.
Yeah, that's part of the whole diet drug procedural cocktail. That is all part of we wrote that. And, there's a lot of parts to this therapeutic strategy that we developed, but the physicians need to perfect and know when to use each part and how to do it. And that's what we're working on now. And again, this is not sexy science. This is what we need to know on how to use the weapons and the tools that we have to manage this disease. And we don't have to discover anything more. I mean, there might be some other drugs that could come along that could target glutamine in a little bit better way, but those drugs by themselves are never going to be the solution. Right. They may have some therapeutic benefit, but it'll never be the way it would be if you also targeted the glucose and put the patient into nutrition.
So if like with mum's therapy, we did hard out intravenous vitamin C. We combined that with hyperbaric. I'd go straight from the vitamin C clinic to our hyperbaric clinic, straight in there. She was on a very low carb keto diet. I did struggle at the beginning because she was on dexamethasone because hers was in the brain, and we had to be on dexamethasone, otherwise her brain would have taken more and more damage. It was one of those situations, especially after the surgery, but I got her off that as fast as I could because that stopped her being in ketosis, right?
Yes.
And so I could not get her up into the 3s and the 4s. And then her microbiome was another thing that was massively impacted, and that also hindered me getting the ketosis up to a really therapeutic level. So it's not always easy to get people into that therapeutic ketosis, is it? Like the 3s and the 4s.
Well, I think one of the things that prevents, like when my students that are young kids, well, not kids, they're in their 20s, with no cancer, with no health issues. I mean, they can get into these zones like quick and
like that.
zones. I mean,
but 80-year-old with,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
a history?
80-year-old, yeah, I mean, it's harder. Anything, the older you get, the harder anything is. But I find that many of the conventional drugs and treatments interfere with getting into ketosis.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct about getting off of dexamethasone. It might be important to have it there for a short period of time, but not for long periods of time. Like in brain cancer, they keep those poor folks on that high, their face swells up. It's called moon face.
Yeah, it's horrible.
You can't get into therapeutic ketosis when you have constant high dexamethasone, or any cancer for that matter. And,
so what do they do, those poor people with glioblastomas and things, you know, with the...
Well, yeah, that's what our big published case is. And that's what, you know, Anthony Claffey there, he was a glioblast. He's in Western Australia, in Perth, and he treats glioblastoma patients. And the hardest part of keeping glioblastoma patients is preventing the radiation treatment. The radiation frees up massive amounts of glucose and glutamine in the brain.
Holy crap, really?
Yeah, that's why everybody's dead. So the treatment themselves is killing everybody. And you know, they get really upset when I tell them this. Yet I've published paper after paper after paper showing the mechanism by which the very treatment for the GBM patient solidifies their death. So, you know, we don't want to throw out all parts of the standard of care. We would like to have a watchful waiting period where we can use metabolic therapy to shrink the tumor down. The surgeon would come in and then debulk as much as he can get. And then we transition the patient over to a really good metabolic therapy without temozolomide or radiation. And these folks seem to live and do so much better. The problem is radiation oncology has become an institution in itself. And to say that you no longer want to use radiation for brain cancer management, they get very, very angry.
Heresy.
But I said, what about the poor patient? I mean, you're angry because you're not generating revenue for your occupation, but that treatment is absolutely killing your patient. And so you have this conundrum. What can I do now? I've been doing this my whole life, irradiating people. And I went and got all the data from all the different clinical trials. And it's so beautiful how fast people die from a glioblastoma treatment. And I said, very few of us in the sciences can ever design an experiment to be so beautifully replicable as the treatment killing patients with standard of care.
And yet it's still, every single one is going through that, you know.
Yes,
it's just
everywhere. As a matter of fact, the radiation oncology departments are usually some of the wealthiest parts of all medical schools. So you're not going to get anybody raising their hand to say, let's stop this anytime soon, despite the fact that it's absolutely counterproductive to the longevity of their patients.
Are you passionate about the groundbreaking and heroic research of Dr. Thomas Seyfried on metabolic therapy and cancer? So are we. That's why we've created something special for you, in collaboration with Johnny Rockermeyer, a German book publisher and translator. Introducing our collection of meticulously crafted books that distill the essence of Dr. Seyfried's work. Dive into the science and discoveries. These summary books are your gateway to understanding the intricate world of metabolic ketogenic therapy in a clear, concise, and engaging way. Whether you're new to the subject or a seasoned enthusiast, our books offer insights that can change your life. Ready to explore this transformative knowledge? Visit our website at www.cancerasametabolicdisease.com to get your copy. You can buy the ebook there directly and the paper book via the provided links. Here's the best part. A portion of every purchase goes directly to support Dr. Thomas Seyfried's groundbreaking research. That's why the direct ebook purchase is the best option to donate as much as possible. You can see all of the donations Mr. Rockermeyer has already made at www.ketoforcancer.net. That's right, when you buy our books, you're not just investing in your own knowledge, you're also contributing to the future of cancer research. Help us make a difference. Together, we can drive change and save lives.
And the science is all there. And then you tell people that, do you know about Otto Warburg? Do you know about glucose and glutamine? And they never heard of that. So how is it possible that you're treating a cancer patient with a therapy that's freeing up the very fuels that's driving the dysregulated cell growth, and you never heard of any of this? And you don't know the biology of the tumor that you're treating? I mean, I don't want to badmouth these poor guys, but they need to be re-educated. They need to be retrained. Otherwise, we are not going to get any major advances in managing these cancers, these deadly stage 4 cancers. The whole system needs to be reevaluated and reconfigured. So it's called metabolic oncology. Metabolic therapy, metabolic oncology will become the new field to manage cancer. There's tremendous resistance on the part of this in the medical schools. There's a tremendous desire for this on the part of the population, the public. The public wants this. The institution does not want this. So you got to go figure what's going to happen.
It's going to take a lot of time.
Well, I mean, as I say in many of my podcasts, I mean, so we're locked into sacrificing all these poor souls. Only because the system does not want to change. Where's the revolution?
When I'm working with someone with cancer, and I tell them all of this stuff, and I say, go and read this and do this and study that and do these interviews and listen to this, and then they go, yeah, and then they go to their oncologist, who in their eyes is still God often, and then they just poo-hoo everything that I've shared with them, and then the poor person is going, who do I believe, her or him? Or
all I say is just look at the statistics of your survivability using their procedure, and the movie coming out, The Cancer Revolution, not only has your mother, but has dozens and dozens of folks that were all so-called terminal, and they jumped on it takes a lot of courage.
It does.
To tell your oncologists you don't want what they're selling.
Very much.
Courage. Because they come at you with an army of white coats and all looking like they know what they're talking about, and makes you feel real comfortable. Until you reach a situation where they say, well, there's nothing more we can do. What do you mean? There was plenty you could do, but you needed to do it the right way. And well, I never heard of that, or they have all these excuses at that.
And they never study the person who is the outlier. Nobody has said to me why.
I find that astonishing. I can't tell you how many success stories we have had from terminally ill patients that were given very little time to live, who have turned the whole thing around, and then go back to their oncologists and almost to the person, never asking, what the hell did you do? You know what they say? Wow, that seems to be good. Just keep doing what you're doing. Well, don't you want to know why and how it turned around? It's like, no. Now, what is infecting the brain of these people to not want to know what their patients are doing? They're in the business to help their patients. They get a patient who does really, really well, and they don't want to know what happened.
You're an exception. And you get told that I wrote a book about mum's first journey with the aneurysm and the stroke, and about this, apparently she's going to die and there's nothing we can do. That was back 8 years ago. And her doctor saw her actually 4 years later or so. She was walking down the walkway by herself, and I was in a coffee shop up the road talking to a friend. Her doctor, who had written her off and had said she's below the level of the worst dementia patient, word for word, and she will never do anything again. And here she is, she sees my mum walking by herself down the walkway, and she comes into the coffee shop like, oh my God, it's a miracle, and your mother's walking out there and she's by herself. And I said, yeah, do you want to know what I did? And she said, no, and turned around and walked out the door.
I know. It's unbelievable. I don't, somebody should write a book on that.
Well, I did.
Because it's like, how is it possible that you have a solution to the problem and the very practitioners do not want to or care about it?
Then I had the head of the medical council here accuse me, saying to me, we were having a robust discussion about all the woo-woo shit that was presented at this conference that I was an MC for, you know, this wellness things. It was apparently all woo-woo bullshit. And he said, you're making people false hope. And I said, you took all hope with Mum, or you and your colleagues took all hope.
I think in many cases, the conventional standard treatments for cancer offers people false hope. Now you have to also realize some of the immunotherapies have had considerable success. PD-L1 inhibitors, the Opdivo and Keytruda, but they don't often talk about what we call hyperprogressive disease, which is the therapies kill the patient before the tumor does.
Yeah.
And you get about 20% of the people die from the treatment. Well, there should be no reason why you should treat any human being with a procedure that has a 20% chance of killing them or making their life worse. Now, what my view is that if we use metabolic therapy and we can chisel down a tumor into a nub or a very residual thing, but we can't, no matter what we throw at them metabolically, it never seems to go away. It's always there. Those kinds of cancers, those cells have obviously survived a lot of trauma to their population, but whatever is left, in my view, based on evolutionary biology, they all may express a certain kind of a marker similar to each other because they all are similar in having survived this. That's where maybe one of these targeted immunotherapies could come in and finish the job. But rather than doing it at the very beginning, they should do it perhaps at the end. Like the final chapter in your healing process may be one of these fancy immunotherapies, because the tumor now is very restricted. It's just hanging on, and maybe this one little hit with an immunotherapy could be the solution for complete resolution. But going after tumors at the beginning when they're raging and knowing that they're driving by glucose and glutamine, and then hitting them with a drug that doesn't target glucose and glutamine is absurd. It's nonsensical. And the interesting thing, it's incredible. In brain cancer, none of these immunotherapies work. And in many cancers, they don't work. And the argument is the microenvironment is so acidified in the tumor, the immunotherapies don't work. Okay, listen, what's causing the acidification? It's the fermentable fuels of glucose and glutamine, and the waste dump products are acidifying the microenvironment. So if I take away glucose and glutamine, remove the acidification in the microenvironment, now your immunotherapies may be a lot more effective.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, what I just said is because I understand the biology of what we're dealing with. And when you have a clear knowledge of the biology of the problem, there are many, many non-toxic solutions to this problem. The problem is the system uses the one size fits all. They think cancer is a genetic disease of somatic mutations. They advertise in the United States that we have therapies for the EGFR receptor, the epidermal growth factor receptor. Like this is bullshit. This is complete crap. Those EGFR cancers are fermenting just like all the other cancers. Now, if you get rid of most of those with metabolic therapy and the last few in the tumor have an EGFR receptor, then maybe your immunotherapy could come in and finish the job. But you can't go after a cancer, a lung cancer. The chances of complete success are very minimal. Shrink it down, take away the fermentable fuels. And then if there's some residual thing, you go in with the EGFR receptor immunotherapy. Wow. You just have to know, and that's because I understand the biology of the disease. I work on it day and night, 24/7 for 30 damn years. Yeah. And once you understand all this stuff, and then you get frustrated because no matter how many papers I publish, no matter how many interviews I give, it's still, they don't understand. I said, gee, what am I going to do?
Yes, but the people on the street are hearing, Dr. Thomas, the people. And when the people start to hear about this and start to push back and start to go to their doctors and start to push for change, then we slowly turn the ship around. And it is like trying to shift a cruise liner, isn't it? It's slow and every person.
The patients are the consumers. The patients are the benefactors of all of this.
Yeah, and they're voting with their feet eventually.
Yes,
absolutely.
And we're going to be starting clinics. One of my key colleagues, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, MD, Ph.D., is presently in Burgund, Switzerland, discussing clinics and strategies for using metabolic therapy for cancer and some other diseases. It's going to come. Clinics will come up. I've spoken. The funny thing is, I'm always speaking to these entrepreneurs who come to me. Oh man, they say your stuff is so great. This is so wonderful. And they can never figure out how they can make a lot of money on it.
This is the problem.
Big problem. Big problem. And they come up from the top business schools and the top wealthy entrepreneurs. They made millions on these other things. And now they say, oh, we're going to move into this area and really kickstart the whole thing. And then when they find out that, what are you doing? Well, I'm not eating any, I'm just drinking water, taking a few cheap repurposed drugs. Oh man, I don't know how to make money on this. I mean, what are we going to do?
It's the same and everywhere. It's the same with things like
the patient themselves and their family.
But then you get philanthropists, the ones who actually want to make a change, and
that's who support our work.
Yeah.
And my work is supported by private foundations and philanthropy.
Amazing.
Where they're not interested in how much money they can make. They just want to know the money they donate to me, is it going to have a humanitarian impact? And believe me, it will. And they just don't care whether they make a buck. Some of these guys are already super wealthy. They just want to know, if they give money to an effort, will there be something coming? And the answer is absolutely, because we're developing the strategies for scheduling, timing, and new combos of diet drug cocktails. Look at the paper we just published, came out yesterday, for pediatric brain cancer. We use diet drug therapy. We took a drug from pancreatic cancer that was a complete bust. It had no therapeutic benefit in the clinic, used by itself for pancreatic cancer. And then we tested it on our preclinical mouse with just the drug, and it was the same as the human. It had no effect. We put it together with the rest of our metabolic cocktail, and the damn drug is super powerful.
Awesome, amazing.
Yeah. So do you want your drug to work, or you just want to make a lot of money? So I'm not against making money. My students and I have thought about it, but I said, right now, let's make sure that that people can live longer, like your mom and hundreds of others, just to know that we're on the right path. Once you know that, I consider that reward. We're rewarding itself. I don't have to make $1 billion to know that this metabolic therapy can manage. And I don't want to call our work a cure for cancer. I want to say it's an effective it's a better state of management than we currently have. If some people are living really, really long without a recurrence, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But metabolic therapy doesn't guarantee people are going to be cured. It pretty much says the probability of longer survival with a higher quality of life, you have a better chance for that.
Yeah, and you can die with cancer.
No idea.
Not of cancer, that's the goal at 100 and something,
Yeah. So I mean, this is where it is.
And we're all producing cancer cells every day. It's just that we have immune systems that, for most of us, are on top of it.
You certainly get rid of it faster if you did intermittent fasting.
Yeah, exactly.
The body turns, and the dog cancer paper that we just recently published on removing a big mast cell tumor on the face of a dog. That's a very interesting study. And in there, I put in the concept of autolytic cannibalism, which is where our body turns on the tumor and uses it for food. And this is based, again, on evolutionary principles. So, and that woman, she tried, she didn't want any chemo or radiation for her dog. And then she put the dog on a vegetable diet with a little bit of cooked meat, and the damn tumor grew much faster. And then she looked at wolves, because all dogs are descendants of wolves. And she said, oh, wolves are carnivores, so she put the dog on a raw chicken with fish oil, a little raw egg, a little oil, and calorie restriction. And within a few months, the damn tumor was completely gone. And the body turns on it. Oh, yeah, look at the data. I have it all published in there. It's a very nice case report. And, cancer is #1 killer of domestic dogs as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
the same strategy works for because all these cancers are fermenters, regardless if it's a dog, a mouse, a cat, a human. They're all the same. Very similar. They can't live without fermentable fuels, and glucose and glutamine are the prime fermentable fuels. So it all comes together quite nicely.
It does. And so, I'm just so grateful for all of the stuff that you are doing. And I'm keen for the nuance now, the nuance of the studies that you're doing, so that we can refine things better and do things a little bit more sophisticated, and training up the doctors, so that we can get doctors who are going to be able to do this press pulse strategy, because not everybody can go it alone like I've done.
And what you
I
need
had
to
doctors
do
in the mix, but
in many of these podcasts, because I don't have time to go through the nitty-gritty details of everything that I'm saying.
No.
But we do publish all these papers open access. Anybody can go onto the web and just put my name in there and say, publication, what's he doing? And people say, oh, I talk this and I talk that, and I don't have the evidence. Let them read the damn papers, for crying out loud. What the hell? They're out there. You want to know the details? Read the damn paper. I'm not. I don't have 20 hours to stand here and give you the details of every one of these pathways.
Exactly.
But you can read about them, and you can judge for yourself, and then you can take the paper and talk to your oncologist about it. It's there.
And they'll just chuck you out at the moment. But anyway, look, Dr. Thomas, thank you so much for all of your amazing work. It is changing lives, you and your colleagues, and shout out to Maggie Bradley and Jones at the Cancer Revolution. I'm excited for that movie to come out, and we're just each one by one getting the message out there to the people that are listening to this, that need this information. And it's not perfected, and it's not all, but it probably never will be. But we have tools now that we can use right now. So I'm so super grateful for you and all your work. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. It's been a real pleasure.